Hello, hello. Part two of the subject feeling insignificant, and I want to get more into the details, into the depths of all of this. And I was thinking all day long about how to structure this video, and I want to bring up everything about this subject that I can find, and I also want to go into the details of it. So let me start with the bullies. Obviously, they are feeling very insignificant because they don't feel seen. They didn't have good education. They don't have a very good job. You know, not a job that excites them, not a job that they would want to talk about with someone. And connected to the feeling of insignificance is shame. People feel shame. And I think it is absolutely vital that we dive into our past, that people start looking within themselves. Very, very important. That's the only path we have. We don't have any other paths to take. Lashing out at other people, bullying other people just makes the world harder. Also for you, for you bullies. It makes the world harder. It makes it harder and harder and harder and harder. It creates a bigger rift between people. It makes it so that women don't even want to date anymore because they're afraid. They're afraid of being hurt, psychologically and physically hurt. I have become mega paranoid. I am afraid of Muslims, and I have become an Islamophobe. You better believe it. And I have become a religiophobe. I am completely against religions, and I'm against religiosity, of any type. I'm against cultism. I'm against hierarchy. That doesn't mean I'm against capitalism. I'm not against commerce in general. I'm not a communist. Communism is yet another way of using corruption and using exploitation, just in a different form, but it exploits. So none of these systems work. Hierarchy doesn't work. But if we look at hierarchy, first of all, it seems to be a very abstract theme, right? Hierarchy. What does it mean? It means there's a ladder of different levels of achievement, or of, they make ladders out of anything. I hear people give women number labels of attractiveness, of beauty. I don't even want to repeat what they say. I find that so incredibly hideous, to label someone and give someone a number. Or even the star system, where you can click just 1 star instead of 5 stars, which is the maximum. It would never occur to me to click 1 star. I mean, that's like, don't even click any star then. And that's why they got rid of the star rating system on YouTube, because it's psychologically wrong. And most people also didn't use this. They wouldn't rate at all if they weren't happy with something. this hierarchy, this, you know, this thinking in ladders, in stairs, you know, in levels of approval rating, in a caste system in India, you know, this, they belong to this hierarchy level, this family, and then the children are not allowed to marry someone below. They're always allowed to go up, but not below. And I mean, do people actually ever look at this? How incredibly idiotic and hideous this is. Do they ever look at this? One time we were at Home Depot, there was a couple from India, obviously Hindus. The woman had the red spot on her forehead and the traditional Hindu female dress with the veil across, and we were in there with our dog Kenny, a Great Dane, white Great Dane, very large, mega large, and a lot of people were afraid of him. And then a lot of people liked him and wanted to pet him, and some people always took photos with him. So, but this Indian couple, you know, this Hindu couple, the man completely ignored us, but the woman also ignored us. But I could see, because I was interested, I was curious. I already felt this. I felt this incredible resistance. It was an energetic thing. It was like I felt their energy. There was such a stagnator level soul, you know. And I just realized that's also a hierarchy, you know, the soul developmental stages that we're in. I noticed that the people who are most into hierarchy are actually the ones that are lowest on the soul developmental scale, so which is the stagnator. So the stagnator soul they're baby souls, they are beginners, they haven't understood anything yet, they haven't understood what love means, what compassion means. So they cling to norms and hierarchies, and they cling to what society dictates to them, particularly their religion. They're very obedient to their religion. It wouldn't matter what the religion dictates, they will obey it. It wouldn't matter what it is. It really, literally doesn't matter what it is. They will obey it. The stagnator will obey it. And so I feel kind of like this is like I'm kind of contradicting myself with this when I say I go against hierarchies. Then I have established a very rough, you know, this is just a broad thing. There's developmental stages in between, of course, but it's just broad, rough scale. But that scale is not built on shame or built on, you know, when someone is a baby, for example, you know, I'm not gonna say, haha, you're just a baby, or something, you know. No. Okay. So in the same sense, you know, I treat every living being equally good. Yeah, when there are people that treat me really bad, then I will back up. Okay. But I treat everyone equally good. I don't have a hierarchy in my life. And I treat people on eye level. And I want to explore and dive into my own type of feeling insignificant, my own shame issues, my pain. I'm not different than anyone else with this. I go through the same pain and the same stuff. I just happen to be someone who isn't very good at denial and lies and deception. I'm just not good at it. I had a boyfriend, I had like I mean, not a boyfriend, I had a guy I was in love with. I visited him secretly one time, but we didn't do anything. He didn't want to do anything with me. He didn't even want to give me a hug. So, but then later on, I was talking to him on email, and I said, I'm not a good liar. I just, my husband asked me where I was, so I ended up telling him. And then the guy said, well, you need to become a better liar. So, right there, it's like that's not moving forward. That's going backwards. If I became a better liar. Um, a very good friend of mine said to me, Nikki, you're too honest. That brings problems in your life. I mean, I love that woman very dearly. But that statement, I mean, I think that had to do with her alcoholism. So alcoholism itself is an illness. It's a coping mechanism which doesn't work, and that also causes people to want to lie to themselves and all of this. And she said, well, you make it kind of hard by being so honest. So I thought, I mean, right away I thought, no, no, I am not backtracking. I like my honesty. I like my dorkiness. I like my Leonard Stetchikness. I like my innocence and naivety, my artisticness. I like all of this. Those are things that I like, where I feel like, yeah, this is good. You know, I need to love myself for that, for those characteristics. I like being kind. I like being good. I like being a do-gooder. People are shamed for being do-gooders. It's like, wait a minute. What kind of society are we living in? We're shamed for being a do-gooder. A do-gooder has become like a negative word. That's something that's shunned. It's like, wow, no, I am grateful for being a do-gooder. I love being good. It's not about pride. I love being good. Being good feels good. Being good gives to others, makes others feel better. And those people that don't feel better, those people that feel really, really bad when they're around me, they shouldn't be around me then. So, and I shouldn't be around them. It's very simple actually. But it's not about hierarchy, yeah. I'm not putting myself above them, although they accuse me of that, interestingly. So is that what makes people take aspirin when they see Leonard Stetchik in the character in the novel The Pale King by David Foster Wallace? Because he said that the people in the school, they all started to have to take aspirin when they were around Leonard Stetchik. I mean, David, he tended to, of course, there was some kind of like a sardonic humor and an over, like an over character, like a caricaturization, it's a tongue breaker, um, making it into a more pronounced situation. But I believe that this is actually what's happening. People are actually taking drugs like aspirin or alcohol or they go to the psychiatrist because they are they might be around people who make them feel insignificant, maybe. Yes, is that what it is? So that's my question. Is that what it is? I'm just trying to dig into this. Is that what it is, that a do-gooder? That's why the label even evolved. The do-gooder, you terrible, bad, good do-gooder. You must be evil because you're doing good. Yeah. So I hear this, I see this all the time on the internet, because before the internet, people would never this kind of in this kind of like a like an fMRI view I didn't have before the internet. Now I can look into people's brains with the modality internet, which is my personal low cost gamma theta ray introspection device, like that's my fMRI machine, sort of, in a roundabout way. I can actually, on the internet, I can see into people's brains. Why? Because the trolls, and when I get into a chat room, let's say I get into a chat room at 5, let's say if I get into the chat room at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, then it's gonna be 6 o'clock in New York. So there's always other people from around the world also, but the majority are from the United States in specific chat rooms. And so at 3 p.m., people are hostile, but they don't reveal so much about their brain. Not yet. Okay, so 3 hours later, it's a different story, They got some alcohol in their blood, running through the brain, running through the the neuronal connections, the wet brain, as my friend Rita called it, and they become more loose in terms of revealing what's going on inside of the brain. Okay, so give it another 3 hours, and incredible, insane hostility and toxic behavior comes to the surface. I'm not talking about the kind-hearted people. If when I drink, I become more generous even. I completely lose the sense of self at all. But with those people, it's like the troll comes out, after the brain gets wetter. And there is no more inhibition. It's uninhibited. So there's no more fear. The fear fades away with the alcohol, and there's always people that will also be hostile without the alcohol, but I'm talking about the majority. So I observe this directly, I see this all the time. So it's very interesting to see this, how people are drinking every day. First they might even still be at the job, then they come home, they start drinking as soon as they come home. Alcoholism is a disease, it's a psychological illness, and it is caused by feeling insignificant. Okay? That's what causes it. And it's the same why people are taking aspirin when they're around Leonard Stitchik. Okay? And then someone even says, and then some other people, they will be, there are some nicer trolls that are a little smarter. They will see the dumbness of the real dumb trolls, and then they will nitpick on the real dumb trolls, and that will shame the real dumb trolls even more. It will make them even more aggressive and more angry. And that's what I try to teach people not to do anymore. Don't lash it back. Don't lash it back. What you're basically doing is you're punching the ego in the belly even more. The ego is already hurting. That's why he is punching at us. If I punch him back, it will be more hurt and more pain and more aggression and more violence, and who knows what they might do then. I don't even want to think about it. So we need to turn this around. We need to come back out of this miserable state of humanity. Jiddu Krishnamurti called it the malaise of humanity. It's a miserable state. It's like a sick state. Come out of this. Why do you want to dwell in this malaise, in this sick state? Why do you want to stay in this, is my question. I guess the answer is they don't know. First of all, they don't even know they're in a malaise state. They don't even know that what that state of mind they're in is a pathology. It's pathological. It's not well. They don't even realize that. The first step is we need to realize this. Okay? This is for those people that are hurting others, other living beings. If you're hurting other living beings, you're in a state, this is a pathological state of mind. Okay? And me saying this might probably hit the ego in the belly again, but I don't mean to hit the ego in the belly. I want to shake you up on your shoulder and say, man, become aware about this. Become aware about your behavior. So many thoughts at once. People see Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, and they think these people are the most talked about people in the world, I guess, at this current time. And so they want to become like them. And they compare themselves to them. They look in the mirror and they think, oh, I don't look like her, or I don't look like him, or whoever they compare themselves to, some famous person who's good looking, or who you find good looking, and you compare yourself to these people, and you ignore that you already are a perfect living being, with every cell of your body that is equally precious to theirs. They're not above you, and you are not under them, and you are not above anyone else. They're not above you, they're not under you, and you are not above or under anyone else. And no one is above or under anyone else. No living being. That's the hierarchy that people create. It's like everyone wants to always strive to become higher in the hierarchy. And so then they can be proud. This whole thing about pride is pride and hierarchy. It's one thing. And that thing needs to be recycled. It needs to be completely dissolved. Religion ties right into this. Religion is based on hierarchy. It's a money-making scheme. It's a scam. It's a power-hungry scam. It's a coping mechanism of the ego. People, they look up to someone like Trisha Paytas, for example. She's helping a lot of people with weight issues because she had weight issues and struggling with this, and talks about this very openly, which I think is stellar. And a lot of people get help from this. This is very important that we all open up. And that's the most important thing, that we open up no matter where we are at. The moment we open up to other people about this, whether this is in video form or open up to a friend, but in video form, it reaches more people. That's why I think this is so good. Or Jeffree Star talking about his problems. Can you imagine how many people he's helping with those videos? Or Shane Dawson. Shane Dawson talking, even though I remember in the past, way in the past, he wasn't talking about these emotional things yet. And I thought he was arrogant, but it was some kind of shyness, I think. So then after a while, he started to open up. And even though he was afraid, and even though he said, my heart is beating and all of this, and I'm afraid to talk about this, but he did it anyway, I feel also very awkward and self-conscious and all of this. But the understanding that this is more important than my awkwardness, to open up, to share this with other people, because I know other people are feeling the same thing. Even some movie stars feel that way. So there are some movie stars that maybe they can only be a certain character. When they dive into a certain character, the moment they dive into a certain character, it's almost like split personalities. Some of them are so good at that. I say good, they are good actors, but in a split personality. So, but that's what is required to be a good actor. You actually become that other person. You stay in that role, you stay in that character. They don't even get out, but those are the best actors. The ones that don't even come out of that character in their lunch breaks. So you stay that asshole or whatever they started to take on. And the ego likes that. The ego likes the role play. Because in the moment they can take on that character, they feel safe. They feel like, oh, no, I have a mask on. I'm that character. I don't have to feel self-conscious because I'm now a different character. It's the same as putting a whole mask on the face. They become someone else. On the internet, people do it with different channels and channel images of someone else, like Barack Obama. There are many men from Africa that use Barack Obama as their channel image. And they go and they say that is them. That's how. Yeah. They stole that photo and made that themselves, to attract a woman. Because they look up to him and they go like, oh, let me just take that image and pretend that's me. And that's one form of this, like being an actor. So, and I see this all the time. I see this on Facebook. It's very interesting, actually. We can use Facebook for positive things, really. We can use Facebook to gather information about psychology. The corporations are doing it all the time with your stuff, So why don't you get into it and you start studying people as a hobby psychologist? Man, we all need to do this. First of all, the if the naive German teenage girls would do this, would start studying psychology and studying people and asking them questions and finding out more, then they wouldn't be so easily lured or groomed into flying to Afghanistan and have their heads chopped off there or be beaten for 10 years. They wouldn't be so eager to do this if they actually started to study these people in depth more, find out what Islam actually is. Read it. Read the Quran. Read what it's in it. Thou shalt kill the infidels. It's like, hello, right there. A violent religion. But people are too busy being afraid of being labeled Islamophobe. Why? Because society says that is dorky and wrong. You're not going to be invited to the party if you are an Islamophobe. You must be dumb, right then? No, no, you are very smart if you're an Islamophobe, okay? And you're very strong-minded if you can be that, and if you can question these things, and if you can even do activism in this regard, and teach other people to question things and become more aware, like Lauren Southern, for example. What an incredibly strong mind. Look how she's hated, but it's not important, that hate. She knows what's important. What's important is to stand up against Islamization, against this hideous movement. That's very frightening, very scary. A lot of people latching onto this. A lot of teenage girls being raped for years and beaten and killed. This is unacceptable. Okay? This is absolutely not acceptable. Do you understand this? I don't know. People out there. Haters. I know the caring people understand it. But then a lot of caring people also don't really want to talk to me about this publicly because they're afraid to be shamed. They're afraid to lose their friends. They're afraid to be looking dorky or whatever, So there's a lot of that going on, and it's all built on feeling insignificant. If we can start to become open about this, about these nitty-gritty feelings, in that moment we become open about it. We shine the light into it for ourselves and share that with other people. The more this is being shared, the less that Rumpelstilzchen has a grip on our minds. Yeah. Rumpelstilzchen is basically a fairy tale embodiment of the ego. That's what it is. And the moment I call the kid by the name, the moment the guy called that Rumpelstilzchen, which is a gnome, a troll actually, that the troll comes out of the fairy tales. That's actually a troll. That's the embodiment of the ego. The moment he said, I know your name is Rumpelstilzchen. In that moment, Rumpelstilzchen pounded himself into the ground on his own beard. So that's it's a German fairy tale, and I guess it comes from the Middle Ages or something. And also interesting that the trolls, there's different types in fairy tales from the Middle Ages. They had the and this doesn't come from nowhere. Okay, it's very interesting. The troll. How does the troll look like? The actual troll from a fairy tale. The actual troll from a fairy tale is just a little bit taller than the dwarf. I think the dwarf is the shortest, and I don't know. I'm just guessing now. The dwarf's about 2 feet to 3 feet tall. I think then comes the gnome. I don't know. I don't know. No, exactly whether the troll is shorter than the gnome or the gnome is shorter. I don't know exactly, but I think the gnome comes after the dwarf is about half a foot or a foot taller, and then the troll is about between 3 and 4 feet tall in the fairy tales from the Middle Ages. And you know, the people were a lot shorter and during the Middle Ages. I know this because I tested this for myself. I'm 5'9", and that was when I was a teenager. I wasn't even 5'9" yet. I was like 5'7" or so at that time when I was 14. We were in Rothenburg in South Germany, and there was this Rothenburg, it means the Red Castle. So we went up to this castle, and that castle, they have a lot of middle-aged castles there. They're actually still, those are relics from the time of 1300, 1400, and they become museums naturally. So, but people don't fit through those doors anymore. So we all had to bend our heads way down to get into this. It was almost scary because the doors were also smaller in general. So, but a troll, you know, 4 feet tall, the actual fairy tale troll would make that his home, you know. He would walk through that door with a straight back, and he would fit through that door gap like a very narrow door. And it was almost like crawling into a cave or something. I was really shocked, and I said to my family, people, they were this short, they were this small just a couple of 100 years ago. And he said, yes. I started to get into this later on, and then I realized, yeah, it had to do with nutrition too, but the main thing is genetics. People have become much bigger, okay? And I think this is what happens in evolution. In general, if you look at evolution, you can clearly see that a species evolves, can become a different species, and then breaks off into different species. And they all break off from each other. They branch off, basically. At some point, they can't mate anymore. But this is what happens. It just keeps branching, you know. But the animals are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Within a species, they become bigger. Within any specific family, they become bigger. Any specific breed, as they call it, they become bigger. The Great Danes have become much bigger. Okay. So the Great Danes have become so big very fast, actually, through selective breeding, of course, too. But that's what happens in evolution, too. Selective breeding happens through certain circumstances, you know, and that what is best adapted functions the best, is the happiest, and has the most offspring, of course. So the other ones aren't that happy, that they might not have so many offspring. So, being miserable can make someone not be reproductive on any of those levels. They do sonar blasts in the ocean that causes the whales reproductive problems, impairments, and stuff. They don't have babies when they're under tremendous stress. That happens to any living being. So that's why I want to give animals personhood rights, because only through the personhood rights we can actually say the whales have rights. They have the right to health and happiness, and that would rule out the US Navy from implementing and testing these sonar devices, these underwater sonar devices that are causing such incredible hardship for the whales. I mean, anything from bleeding internally if they're in the close proximity to trying to get away from that blasting sound, to swimming into rivers to get away from it, where they're getting stranded, where they're dehydrating, where their body collapses on itself. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Just I talk about this all the time because it is so incredibly important that we do something about this. But yeah, evolution happens. People were short. The trolls obviously come from the Middle Ages, because the people there were 5 foot and shorter. They were, and maybe some of them were just extremely short. And dwarfism has also been around for quite a while. Basset hounds are dwarfs. Okay? They are the dwarfs of hound dogs. Hound dogs, the classical bloodhound dogs that were bred for hunting. Then they must have had a dwarf, or that dwarfism probably just happened, okay? And then they thought that was fun, and they started to breed the dwarves with each other, and they got more dwarves, and so that's how it got started. It started in France, actually in a monastery. I think a Benedictine monk monastery, where the monks, they had a lot of time on their hands, and they loved those dogs, and they thought they were cute, and so they bred them, and then they turned out to be also used as hunting dogs to accompany the foot hunters. Okay. While the bloodhounds were used as to accompany the horseback hunters. So that's how it was. And so dwarfism happened, and that's where the troll comes from. And so now, why was the troll becoming such a negative character? Okay, it's very simple, actually, if we look at it. Okay, the troll was short, okay, and there are also some dwarves that were also not nice, okay, but most of the dwarves, with their dwarf hats and all of that, they kind of stuck together, and they made it work. A lot of those also worked in coal mines. That's another thing, is a lot of poor people, poor men that were short, were sent into coal mines, which is really, really unethical. And very tragic, all of this. So exploitation has been around for a long time. But some of them were obviously very angry about the situation that they were in, exploited or not seen. They would never get a woman. A man who is 4 feet short, you know. The other people weren't much taller. They were 5 foot or 5 feet, maybe something like this, or 4'5" or something, were the women, and the men were 5 feet tall. And the troll was shorter, and the troll was between 3 and 4 feet, and so it was hard for him to find a woman. The women always chose the taller men. It has always been like this. It's been like this in all species, seems like. So that's how the troll evolved, with the ego happening, you know, the ego as the defense mechanism, you know, the ego turning this around into hate and all of this, jealousy, you know, feeling insignificant, you know, feeling rejected. Then the hate arises out of this, and there is the troll in the fairy tale, you know, the mean troll that sabotages those people and families that have something going for themselves. So I think I'm coming a little bit closer now to the Leonard Stechik conundrum, as I would call it. You know. So I think this is just a theory. I don't know, because I can't really grasp it. So because I can't understand it from a personal point of view. I can only theorize, hypothesize about this. So I think the troll, that's why these people are called troll. They feel insignificant. I don't know how tall they are. Some of them might be short too. I've met a troll in person, not that long, a couple of years ago. Okay, maybe this example might highlight this completely now. Okay, so there were people in this neighborhood here. Two tall blonde guys, good looking, and a troll. Papa dog, yes. So the two blonde guys, good looking guys, they were about, I don't know, 6 feet tall, both of them. And the troll was about 5 feet tall, something like this. I would say he was not taller than 5 feet. And I'm 5'9", so I was towering over him. And I could clearly see he was very angry, very on edge. I could clearly see this. But he was the grandkid of one of these people here, that were one guy that had a business. And so he was the one who was hiring the other two, so they kind of like acted kind of submissive around the troll because they were sort of employed by him. And we hired these 3 people for something. So they were all looking at Paul as the one who was saying what was to be done. And it was the strangest thing. It was also touching and everything. So then Kenny came out and I came out and into the garden. I talked to them over the fence. It was a couple of summers ago. And Kenny, our former Great Dane, tall white Great Dane, and the troll guy, they all petted Kenny over the fence, and the troll guy, he really enjoyed petting Kenny. He kind of, for a moment, for a couple of minutes, he kind of got lost in this. He forgot about himself and his worries and all of this stuff, and just enjoyed petting Kenny. And I saw this immediately. There was an energetic shift in him. It was incredibly amazing for me to see that. I saw that kid really needed a dog. He needed to pet a dog. And but he himself was not in any shape to have an animal and to be a caregiver for an animal or child, so he was too mentally ill. So then after they started to talk to Paul, and then the tall guy went over to the other side, and I was briefly talking to him. And when I was talking to him, his entire energy shifted. Although I was really nice to him and friendly, his entire energy shifted back to Troll. Because I'm just guessing here. Maybe because he felt insignificant, and maybe he felt like here is this tall woman talking to him. And I mean, I'm not that tall. I mean, 5'9" is it's still kind of average, but on the tall side. I mean, I would say tall. Yeah. So maybe it, maybe I am tall, but maybe the new generations, they're taller. So I think they're already much taller. But so in my class back in school, I was one of the tall girls. So the other ones were all around 5 feet, or 5'2" or 5'3" or something. And I actually felt too tall. I was embarrassed about it. I felt like I didn't feel feminine enough, or I didn't feel pretty enough because I was tall. So, and then I became chubby. So then I kind of didn't want to be in this competition anymore. But that guy, he definitely, I mean, to him I was very tall, and he must have felt insignificant or something. So that's why when I came to LA in 1992, the fad then was the petite short girl. And that's also what my husband likes the best. Petite short girls, blonde petite short girls. And that makes the men feel more manly when they're around a petite short girl than being around a big tall lady. So that if they're around a big tall lady, they all feel a little bit dwarfed next to her or something. I'm just guessing about this. Maybe you can help me out. Maybe I'm completely off. I don't know. I'm trying to make sense out of all of this. But anyway, this guy, this tall guy, I'm sure he's the tall on the internet, absolutely certain. That tall guy, his entire energy shifted while he was talking to me, and then I started to get my own psychology kicked in. I started to struggle a little bit with him, and I said something about animal rights, and immediately he got even more tensed up because he listens to talk radio and he thinks that animal rights is bad or something because of the right-wing talk radio. And the other two guys started to get scared of him because of this dynamic, and they started to come into the conversation trying to appease him and appease the situation and make it sound less frightening to him, because it's all subconscious. But he just got angrier and angrier, and I just left them at some point, and I let them do their job and deal with Paul. And I didn't mention animal rights anymore. So I could clearly see that completely tensed him up, and there's just no way I could explain anything to him in 5 minutes or something. So, and it would never convince him that it is safe for him to be around me and for his ego and whatever. And that I'm actually a very kind person and I don't judge anyone, but his ego was like tensing him all up. All of his pain was coming up and everything. Probably felt very insignificant, and he felt insecure, and as a man also, he felt He probably felt shame, you know. I'm just guessing on this. I don't. So he sees our house, and so then there's jealousy, and there's shame, and there's insignificance, and there's all of these things, then anger about it, which is then entitlement, you know. Why do they have this house and we don't have this house? And I don't know which house he lived in. He lived somewhere in the neighborhood. But it was about a year later or so that, and during one night, that guy, that same troll, he started to shoot everything in his house. I hope he didn't have an animal. He shot everything in his house, and he shot into his car, into his tires. He completely lost it. Completely lost it. And his friend, I guess it's one of these blonde guys, that came over and said, "What's going on?" And he threatened that guy. He said, "I'm going to shoot you." So the guy got away just in the nick of time, called the sheriff, and the sheriff came, and they had to surround his house, and they had to force him out, and he went to jail, and then he went into an insane asylum for criminally insane people. It was on the news and all of this. So I had to think about all of this for a long time, you know. So, you know, and Elliot Rodger also is just another troll, you know, or any of these people that started shooting kids in schools. Those are all the trolls. Trolls. They probably have done a lot of trolling on the internet first. And at some point, because it doesn't make them feel better, the trolling. It doesn't make them feel better hurting anyone, hurting any living being. So at some point, they're just turning in a circle. And then they lose it, because then the ego does itself in a last total despair attempt to not feel the pain of shame, which just kept creeping up more and more and more. And then they become extremely violent and lash out. And we can avoid this, you know. So that's why I make videos about this. We can avoid these escalations. We can avoid also this pain, you know, of feeling insignificant. Everyone is equally significant and important and precious. Every one of us, every living being. People make themselves feel insignificant by creating a completely fake hierarchy, a hierarchy that doesn't exist. All of these hierarchies that people create, you know, with things that seem so real, like from Hollywood, the stars and all of this. All of this comparison all the time. You know. It appears to be so real that women go under the knife, have themselves cut up to become someone else, you know, instead of valuing that what they have. Sometimes I see real gorgeous women go under the knife and become someone else. That makes me so incredibly sad. I don't understand. I don't get it. I really don't understand it at all. Some women, they'll show before and after, and they're convinced that they're seeing this completely clearly, and that everyone must agree. No, I don't agree. The before, in most cases, is much, much, much better than after. Okay, much better. And I'll say it to them, and they shake their heads, and they go, "She must be looking through distorted glasses or something." I said to a guy on Facebook, "You're so cute." And he said, "You must be blind." That's horrible, all of this, you know. It's horrible. Then they create a fake pride. And then confirm that, when I confirm it and say, yeah, they are beautiful, then they go, you must be nuts, like contradicting themselves in 2 sentences. So the fake pride is, I mean, it doesn't go very far, obviously, you know. So that's why I'm saying, you know, all of this fake pride, the hierarchy, and all of this is just an attempt from the ego to drown out the actual, what it actually feels like. But we first have to get to the what it actually feels like. We can't skip that part. Okay, if you build a bridge, you have to have 2 pillars to put the bridge on it. You can't, otherwise it will fall down. You can't, in the same way with psychology, you have to first look at the issues, and you have to acknowledge that's how it feels. And then we get into it. After we cry, we get into finding out